This is Wave Candy. We'll add a note in. And you get these really, really gorgeous, smooth displays. So this is the default scope that comes with FL Studio. And in my opinion, it is possibly the best scope that comes with a DAW because it can do that. That alone, not many scopes can display stuff so easily, so smoothly. It does have some caveats though, some things that have to be in a certain order in order for this to work. So for example, I'm hitting the note C. If I hit a note like D, it doesn't work anymore. And that's because the update function here takes a note. So if I want D, I have to pick D, and then it works. If I want C, I pick C. So this is great for inspecting a note, and any note that has a really nice harmonic relationship with it, like a perfect fifth, will cause it to look very smooth. But that's kind of the rule. Now, if it had some sort of an external input that you could feed a control signal in to trigger it, and then feed in a separate display signal, I think you could generalize this control, which would be a really cool update or an upgrade or a feature or whatever. But it's been like this forever. That's the thing about this scope is it used to be available as a VST. It's now only in FL Studio as far as I know. It comes in FL Studio. You get it for free with FL Studio. And it has a bunch of other stuff in here that is also very good. I'm just shocked it hasn't received any like big feature upgrades to it being, for example, multi-channel. There's no multi-channel. The other thing I kind of hope to see one day is a more extensive trigger section. There's no additional trigger section. Like this is it. And it's sort of strange because you have update. This is kind of unique to how, of all the scopes, this is a strange way to do it compared to the others. Given its age, though, I guess I'm not surprised it has such a different paradigm. There is the window, which just shows you, more or less. So if you want to zoom in or out, the window, I think, is admittedly pretty small. For example, here is a drum loop. And we'll change our update to be as big as possible. We'll take off pinch. We'll bring down the gain. That's kind of it. I mean, if we go the other way, we'll zoom in. It looks good, but there are other scopes that I think excel at showing this type of info with a scrolling display better. The usability of it too is a bit strange. Or not strange, but just dated. So you have a dB readout, and I believe this is just like a -1 to 1. So you have a scale readout, but to freeze it, you actually have to click on freeze, and it's got like its own separate panel. It also can't get very big, like this is as big as it can get. But if you double click it, they have like a mini mode, which is pretty cool. Click it again, bring it up. And this is cool for the other modes. And in that respect, it's really nice. You could do stereo separation. You could show the two channels separately. And there's this interpolate, which has to do with like the samples themselves. So let's see if we can get this. If I turn off interpolate, you can't tell because we're so zoomed out. But you see how it looks all blocky now? Make it maybe an F1. And this blockiness comes because, right, it's stair-stepping to each next one. So we'll go to interpolate, and that'll just smooth it out. You have pinch. Pinch has to do with how it looks on the sides. So if we play this, you can see how it looks versus without it. Zoom out as the wave moves across the screen. And then there's some really interesting displays. So there's a bunch of other stuff in here. I really don't like the drop down being in control of this. It'd be cool if it knew which one you were on, so it would only show those instead of showing you everything every time. So you want to look for the oscilloscope, and you can change the ruler and the waveform. And there's some things about the display itself. And so you can choose it with HSL and change it. So that's how I made this orange. I changed the waveform to this orange color. And I almost always end up coming in here and taking the color because it starts off on background. and it's usually transparent. I almost always end up turning this up. There's this interesting thing over here called punches, which at first seems kind of weird. They're like holes, but when you get a lot of holes, you can kind of see through it. It has this like look. I've never seen anyone use this. I think it's interesting that it's there. Corners lets you sharpen the corners. You can add a bevel or a glow or a reflection to the bottom. If you come over here and turn on the glow. So there's a lot you can see down here. There's a lot of cool features in here. Freezing it is kind of a pain to work with, very dated with the, you click the freeze button over here. A lot of scopes these days are supporting like being able to click on the scope to pause it. This sort of a thing, if we were to change it just a little bit, this kind of a thing can be really tricky for some oscilloscopes to figure out how to trigger. Because as these two change in ratio, like let's say that we had this, I don't know, let's look for an interesting ratio, this sort of a thing. You can see the sine wave traversing through it as they sum at their different rates. And it can cause multiple trigger conditions to happen within a cycle, and it causes all this weird crap. And so they did this, which is just total genius how they did it. But you could totally expand this now. There's a lot of room here for improvement. So one day I hope we see an overhaul to it. It's a really cool scope. It can handle cases that many other scopes really struggle with, but it also kind of is falling behind the times in some other categories with other trigger functions and the way you sort of interact with it. Those are my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think about Wave Candy down below. Subscribe and hit that bell icon for future videos, and have a blessed day.